Joining us now, Jennifer Nadel, the co-director of Compassion in Politics. Jennifer, great day for America and the world?
A really frightening day for America and the world. The instability, the insecurity that Trump is going to bring will have repercussions throughout the globe. We have a man who is convicted of assault. We have a man who was impeached twice. We have a man who tried to topple democracy, who denied the result of the election that he lost. These are really, really dangerous times. He's willing to say anything that will create impact, and he thrives on disinformation and instability. And that is not good for any of us.
He's also a man that comprehensively won an election, and by rights of democracy, has earned his right to be back, right?
He won the election, and so he is president, but that doesn't mean that it's good that he's president. And that also doesn't mean that he won the election by being honest. We have certain values in our democracy in the UK, and most democracies aspire to those values of honesty, decency, and truth-telling, and the rule of law. And Trump has just ridden roughshod over all of those. I mean, you're right, he's hugely popular. He's a very seductive, charismatic character, and he has simplified everything. He has spun a fairy tale for the American nation, and all of us love fairy tales. All of us want to believe that the impossible is possible, that things aren't complicated. Really, they're simple. Really, there are goodies and baddies, and people aren't actually a mixture of both. And he has allowed the nation to believe in fiction. And he's also allowed them to hope. America needed hope, and now he has sold them a story that has given them hope, but unfortunately it's false hope, and that is not going to go down well.
You can argue, though, that actually, if you look at the policy offerings that were on offer in November compared to Harris, who kept it pretty light in terms of proper details about what she was going to do, compared to Trump, who was pretty clear about what he was going to do, whether people liked it or not.
Release criminals. Yes, he was pretty clear
Well, Joe
about what he was
Biden's been
going to do.
pretty heavy on the pardons in the
Harris,
last 2 weeks.
I know he didn't cover himself in glory either. It is a depressing day for democracy and a depressing period. That doesn't mean that I think Harris had the best chance of winning that she could have had. I don't think she ran the best campaign that she could have run. The Democratic Party didn't help her. Biden didn't help her by hanging on to power, despite his having said he was only interested in one term, his failure to listen to those within the Democratic Party and those within the country that were telling him he was too old and that he needed to go. So Harris was put in an impossible position. The Democratic Party didn't help by not having an open primary. Presumably they were scared that someone they couldn't control might win, like Bernie Sanders.
The Jeremy Corbyn of America, that's what they didn't want to happen, right?
No, but it could have stopped Trump. So, we don't know. We don't know what would have happened, but we do know that the Democrats could have done a much better job than they did.
How do the Democrats and the left in America and around the world really sort of pull themselves up, pick themselves up and put themselves back together? Because it is clear that, in the greatest democracy on earth, the biggest, election show there is, their worldview, their stances, their policies on everything from the green agenda through to DEI and drilling and oil and immigration were comprehensively rejected. I mean, there doesn't seem to me to be a sort of a notional figurehead who's going to stand up for to Trump. Who's it going to be, and how are they going to do it?
We don't have that person yet. But there are big learnings to come from the Democrats' failure to stop Trump. They need to reconnect with their base. They cannot take ethnic minorities and other groups for granted. They have to be more respectful, and they have to realize that economics is everything, that you can talk about lofty morals and ideals and the future of democracy, but if you are economically unstable, if you can't feed your kids, if you're working 3 jobs, if the money in your wallet is going less far than it did before, you are not going to win.
And that's a comprehensive mistake they made. Do you fear that the left in this country is making a similar mistake? Obviously, we're seeing Nigel Farage eking up in the polls. If you add up the Tories and the Reform vote, they're now out-polling Labour. We don't have a sort of Prime Minister who's, even on his best days, is particularly charismatic, shall we say. Do you think there's a read-over across here in Britain?
I think it's early days, but I do think that Labour need to be worried. Reform came second in 98 seats, and 89 of those seats were seats won by Labour.
Yeah.
And Labour isn't pulling rabbits out of hats, nor is it winning the charisma competition. And it's got to turn itself around. But it is early. That may still happen, but it should be worried.
And how does Starmer handle Trump? Obviously, we had David Lammy out, a man that's previously said lots of things, similar things, that he's a criminal, that he's racist, that he's a tyrant. We had Sadiq Khan saying he was a fascist over the weekend. But you now almost had the entire Labour Party doing everything they can to sort of ingratiate themselves with the Trump regime. Do you think that's the best way of playing it?
I think that's what's in the best interest of Britain. I think it's a bitter pill to swallow. I think the things that that were said in opposition were true, but now that Labour is in government, they have to behave in a statesman-like, cordial fashion, because Britain's interests depend upon their relationship to a large extent with America, and that necessitates, that's what diplomacy is about. Diplomacy isn't about hanging out with your friends. Diplomacy is about developing relationships with those with whom you disagree, sometimes violently, and that's what the job of government is.
And what about the sort of wider cultural left in this country? Do you think that they're sort of, well, it seems to me that everyone's slightly overreacting and we don't actually know how it's going to go with Donald Trump. He may yet do a good job, he may yet not. Do you think that perhaps we should take the temperature down a little bit?
I really don't think so, because we've already seen him and Musk interfere in our political process. We can't have foreign powers interfering. We can't have the offer of $100 million to a party leader.
I mean, George Soros has been funding progressive movements in this country for years, and it's called philanthropy. It's philanthropy. Oh, well, easy for me to say. Why is it okay when the left do it, but not okay when the right do it?
We're not talking about progressive organisations that are furthering social justice causes. We are talking about interfering, using money to rig a political race. And that doesn't happen in mature democracies. It shouldn't happen in mature democracies. And I think the UK really needs to pay attention. We need to put a cap on political donations to stop foreign interference. And we need to protect ourselves from the worst excesses of social media, this ludicrous fiction that we have, that they are not publishers, that somehow they're not responsible for the content that drives their clicks and drives their profits, has got to be ended. So this is a moment in time. Trump's inauguration is a moment for us to take stock and look at how we can protect our democracy. We don't know what will happen when Trump is actually in power, but we've seen enough to know that we need to be careful and we need to protect ourselves.
Jennifer Nadel, I'll put you down as a maybe on the Trump support there. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. Take care.